Mystery Monday number 9. The Case of the Thieving Welder. Michael Strawn dropped himself warily into one of the scratched and creaky chairs at the squad room lunch table. He was alone, so he sat for a moment waiting for his energy supply to catch up with him. Slowly and very carefully he sat out the separate contents of his lunch bag in front of him. Has it come to this? He thought to himself as he peeked under a flap of the wax-papered wrapper. Don't tell me that looking for surprises in my lunch has become the high point of my day, he said out loud to himself. Has it really come to this? He unwrapped the sandwich and tossed the wax paper in the general direction of the wastebasket. Hey, peanut butter and banana. Maybe life isn't so terrible after all. His tired face lit up. It was his favorite, especially when the peanut butter was spread so thick it glued his tongue to the roof of his mouth. Strawn leaned back in his chair, carefully, however. The chairs in the squad room had long since been given up responsibility for anyone of adult weight. He stretched back to the shelf behind him to reach a shiny portable radio. The sounds of the Grateful Dead had finally worn through to his consciousness. He flicked the FM switch, terminating their noise. Immediately, the sounds of the Bruch violin concerto changed the character of the whole room. Unbelievable, Strawn whispered. Bruch, peanut butter, and solitude. And I'm going to eat with both elbows on the table, too. He paused. Maybe it has come to this, he added, louder this time. The door behind him burst open with great force. Sarge! It was Detective Kamsick. Sarge, I've been looking all over for you. Kamsick had been Strawn's partner for 2 weeks last year. He was reassigned when Strawn went to the squad leader and requested an immediate transfer to vehicle maintenance. The message had been clearly received. Congratulations, Kamsick. Now you found me. It just goes to prove that you should never underestimate the power of coincidence. It's lunchtime, and I am here in the lunchroom. Strawn picked up half of the peanut butter sandwich. And don't call me Sarge. So here you can kind of sense the sarcasm in his voice. Sort of that's the kind of nuance that I want you to kind of start picking up. He doesn't like him, and you can kind of tell when he says things like, "Oh, what a coincidence, you found me in the lunchroom at lunchtime." He's not really a fan of this guy. So we go on, and Kamsick says, "Yeah, I found you, Sarge. Figured you might be having lunch." Kamsick was not noted for speed. "We got a citizen out there. She's claiming robbery. So that's you." Kamsick reached over the radio and resurrected the Grateful Dead, turning up the volume. "Kamsick?" Strawn had squeezed the sandwich so that a dollop of peanut butter now rested on his knee. "Kamsick, do you know what the ancient Siamese did to people who interrupted a meal?" Kamsick looked confused. "Huh?" Never mind. Strawn reached over to the radio again. "If I may," he said, and he restored the brush, readjusting the volume. "Can it wait? This robbery?" "Dunno," Kamsick shook his head. "I think she's something of a VIP. The captain was sure falling over himself." "Okay, show her in. For goodness sake, find a clean chair first." As Kamsick left, Strawn carefully lifted the peanut butter from his trousers with his index finger and licked it. He was sitting there like that, with his finger in his mouth, when Kamsick returned with the robbery victim. She was elegant, tall, graceful. Her fur coat was full length. The hat she wore would have appeared ridiculous on anyone else, but on her it was all part of a perfect image. She was the kind of woman who made men sit up straight and suck in their waistlines. And here I am, Strawn reflected, in the filthiest squad room in the Northern Hemisphere, with a sandwich in one hand, my finger in my mouth. This is Miss Cloris Dean, Sergeant Michael Strawn." Even Kamsick was elevated to new heights of etiquette. "Please, call me Cloris." She held out her hand. "You like Bruch?" Strawn was now desperately wishing he had not put his finger in his mouth. In a single motion, he drew it along his jacket and took her hand. "Just the violin concerto in G minor, really. He uses the cello a little more often than I like in a lot of his other stuff. Mrs. Cloris Dean was impressed. Her eyebrows said that plainly. Strawn immediately felt that he'd restored a bit of balance to the situation. Please, sit down. Strawn waved to the chair that Kamsick had set on the opposite side of the table. Would you like a sandwich? Instantly, he regretted that question. The lady was definitely a crepes and caviar. Peanut butter sandwiches, especially thick peanut butter sandwiches, were hardly her custom. She showed interest, however, and smiled. What kind? Peanut, Strawn said. Peanut butter and banana. No, thank you, she continued, smiling. I love peanut butter, but not right now. Ah, sure. Well, Strawn cleared his throat. We should get to the details here. I'm afraid I know nothing about your situation yet. You don't mind if Detective Kamsick here tape records our conversation. It's normal procedure. Oh, of course not, she replied. My name, as you know, is Cloris Dean. I live at 417 Wolf Boulevard, and I've been robbed of my jewelry. Diamonds, mostly. I'm certain who did it, too. The insured value is... Excuse me, Mrs. Dean. Cloris, Strawn broke in. Detective Kamsick, if I may... Kamsick was staring slack-jawed at Cloris Dean. Kamsick! Strawn finally got his attention. The tape. Turn on the tape. Kamsick immediately reached for the radio, then checked himself and sheepishly turned toward the tape recorder. Sorry, Sarge. Strawn offered the most ingratiating smile to Cloris Dean. Please, go on. She took a breath and waited for Kamsick to discover that he had pushed the rewind button instead of record. Then she began again. They're insured for an even million, and normally they're in the safe, but this time... Maybe I better back up a bit. Okay, Strawn was listening carefully. You're in charge. Cloris Dean sat a little straighter. Yesterday morning, my husband left on a business trip. He needed his passport and that kind of thing, but he couldn't open the safe. We called the company and their people couldn't do it either. Finally, they had to get someone with what is it called? A cutting torch? This man came, a big man. He had a hulking way about him, and he came right into our bedroom with all tanks and apparatuses and cut right through. It took quite a while, but he did it. So your husband got his passport, but now you don't have a safe? Or at least one that's working? Strawn said. Indeed, Cloris Dean nodded. And that man, the one with the torch, is the one who robbed me. I'm certain of it. How do you know? Strawn asked. That is a very serious accusation. I realize that. Cloris Dean looked up as the concerto ended. I don't say this idly. This morning at exactly 5:29, the clock radio is right beside my bed. I woke up and a man was in my room. He had a knife at my throat. Cloris Dean began to shake a little bit. Strawn felt there was a hint of tears in her eyes. I was terrified. He didn't say anything, and then he sat on me and tied me to the bed. All this time he did not say a word. Oh God, I was so scared. She was crying now, not sobbing, but controlled, her cheeks dripping tears. And then he simply took my diamonds out of the safe and some cash. It was all right there, and left. How did he knew he did? It was Kamsick. He was eating Strawn's sandwich. How do you know? He paused the mouthful deeper into one cheek. He pushed the mouthful deeper into one cheek. How did you know it was the welder? Did you see his face? Strawn was aghast. Cloris Dean simply wiped her tears, unaffected by Kamsick's social skills. He had a mask, one of those ones with eye holes, like a terrorist. But he was big, hulking, the same body shape as the welder. It was him. Strawn reached back and turned off the radio. With part of his mind, he had heard the radio host say, Hendemith, and that he felt would be as bad as the Grateful Dead. Kamsick here is big and hulking. It was dark, wasn't it? How can you be so sure it was the welder? Kamsick smiled awkwardly. There was peanut butter on his chin. Cloris Dean leaned forward. The smell. Not a lot. Just a little of that welding smell. You know, that gas they use? It must get in their clothes or in their pores or something. I smelled it on him when he came to open the safe, and I smelled it this morning. I tell you, all the time it took me to untie myself this morning, I just knew it was him. Strawn paused for at least a minute before speaking. I think, Mrs. Dean, what I'll do is get your statement typed up for you to sign, and then I'll have the welder picked up for questioning. If you don't mind waiting in the outer room, please. Detective Kamsick held the door, then closed it after her. He looked at Strawn. You don't seem in an awful hurry to get this guy, he said. Strawn sighed. I'm not as convinced of his guilt as she would like me to be. We'll pick him up all right, but at the same time, I think we'd better go for some background into Mrs. Cloris Dean. He looked at Kamsick. Do me a favor. What? Wipe your chin. What has triggered Strawn's suspicions about the elegant Cloris Dean?